Hey everyone, welcome to Mighty Forces. I'm your host, Amanda Hirsch. If you're someone who gives a damn about other people, about the state of the world, then you are in the right place. Welcome. Take a load off, let your hair down, and get ready to go deep. And to get stupid. Because in my experience, the best conversations with the best people share both of these characteristics. Let's start the show. Hi everyone, it's Amanda. Welcome to a very special episode of Mighty Forces. Makes me think of like a very special episode of Blossom growing up. Today we're going to do something a little different. It's Thanksgiving week, and I'm grateful for all of you. And I don't mean that in a glib way. I mean it for real. I'm grateful for all of you for listening to these conversations that I've put together and that mean quite a lot to me. And I also thank you even more for being the kind of people who are drawn to a podcast like this, for being people who give a damn and who appreciate a mix of depth, getting into it, whether it is social justice or mental health or spirituality, being of service. You are not idle small talk people. At the same time, if you're here, I think you appreciate silliness and maybe even absurdity. And that makes you even more my kind of people. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being you. And today we're going to do something I like to call Story Hour with Amanda, although it's poorly titled because it's not going to be an hour. Story 10 to 15 minutes with Amanda. And I'm going to read to you from my book, Improvising Adulthood, What I Wish Someone Had Told Me. And I do this in the spirit of continuing to share myself with you on this podcasting journey. Those of you who are just getting to know me through these conversations, this is a really good way to get to know me. This is my origin story that I'm about to share. It explains a whole lot about who I am and why I am the way I am, and maybe even includes the seeds of what would one day become this podcast. So here we go. Pour yourself a cup of tea, pull a blanket around you, or if you're driving, please don't do either of those things. Eyes on the road, folks. Eyes on the road. Wherever I find you in this moment, whether it's behind the wheel of a car, listening as you cook or do chores, listening as you ride public transportation, as you go for a walk, whatever it is you're doing, travel with me, if you will, back in time to the late 90s and the city of Philadelphia. My transition from cheerful high school student to morose college student was remarkably swift. My high school was full of wonderful, smart, creative humans. I know many people hate this time of life, but I loved it. My parents had suggested I enroll in the International Baccalaureate program, which turned out to be a godsend. I felt a tremendous sense of belonging, something I took for granted the way you take good eyesight for granted until suddenly you have to strain to see what once was crystal clear. In my first year at the University of Pennsylvania, or Penn, as many people call it, the whole world felt out of focus, and I couldn't find a pair of glasses that worked. Shortly before graduation, my high school writing teacher, Mrs. Wilczek, she of the scent of rosewater, pulled me aside in the hall. "I really don't see you at Penn," she said. I think she was trying to save me. This is one of those sliding doors moments. What if I'd listened? But I didn't. Fast forward to the first week of college. It's freshman orientation, and I'm sitting in the middle of the quad on the balcony of an old stone building. Next to me and spread out on the lawn in front of me are hundreds of students. I am looking up at the moon. I am alone. Despite being an outgoing person, something about the forced fun of orientation week left me feeling alienated rather than welcomed. I felt no chemistry with my roommate. I ate meals with her and some other people from my dorm, but I never felt truly at ease. If this were a movie, now is when you'd see a montage of me spending freshman year trying one activity after another in an attempt to find my people. I went to a meeting of the literary magazine, but I didn't know anyone and felt like a random fly on the wall. Same thing when I tried joining the newspaper. I went to an open house for a bunch of different drama clubs, didn't click with anyone, felt disconnected, and left. From my vantage point over 20 years later, I can see that if I'd had a buddy attending these things with me, or if the people running the clubs had had a better sense of how to make new people feel included, everything could have been different. But they didn't, and I was buddyless, and I continued to struggle. Eventually, my mother persuaded me to try Greek life. I really didn't want to. It did not seem like my thing. But she made a strong case, and I was running out of other options. I rushed and ended up pledging Chi Omega, for whom Greek life is foreign. That basically means I auditioned, and then I got the part. It was because of that choice that I ended up meeting my 3 best college friends, people whose friendship continues to this day. But the whole sorority thing never felt right to me. I would attend events with my, quote, sisters and just feel like a fish out of water. I wasn't interested in the things they were interested in. A big factor was that I was dating Jordan, long distance. I was more interested in writing and exploring the city and connecting with people over shared creative interests than I was in meeting dudes or partying. Back then, the assumption was that everyone in the sorority was straight. I wonder how many of those people weren't actually straight, but were going through the motions of what they thought was expected of them. In other words, following a script. Fast forward now to my junior year. I'm walking down Walnut Street in Philadelphia, and I am crying. I have been haunted for weeks by a feeling of just going through the motions of my life, and now it's a random weekday morning, and I can't stop the tears. I pass the Cinnabon, the Gap, chain stores that feel as impersonal and separate from me as my entire college experience so far. I get myself back to my on-campus apartment, and I call Kate. "You need to get on a train," she tells me, "and go home." And I do. In the rearview mirror, I see now that what I was experiencing was part existential crisis, part clinical depression, which it would take another decade to diagnose, and part being deeply in love with someone who went to a different school several hours away. Notice here how making choices that are true for you, such as dating Jordan long distance all through college, can appear wrong to people on the outside at the time. Why don't you date around? You're only young once. Only to inspire people later. Oh my gosh, you guys have been together how long? You should give motivational talks about being in a successful marriage. Back to the existential part. I just couldn't shake the feeling that there was this enormous gap between why people said they were at Penn and why they seemed to actually be there. What they said, to get an education. What I saw, people gunning for good grades in order to get a good job. And by good, I mean lucrative and, quote, impressive. That is to say, at a well-known company, not necessarily meaningful or fulfilling. Many students had parents who had gone to Penn, and now here they were, graduating straight into jobs at places like McKinsey and Company that paid 21-year-olds $100,000 a year. It was like a privilege factory, where so many of the other girls dressed identically, a parade of black pants weaving through campus like a trail of ants. Ants work hard, but they are not independent thinkers. I'm sure this is an unfair generalization, but it's absolutely how it felt to me at the time. I had recently read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig. In it, he writes that, quote, removing grades exposes a huge vacuum in our system of education, unquote. That hit me like a gut punch. I became aware of myself as a hamster on a wheel. Take me off the wheel, and what the hell would I do with myself? What was I actually doing here at this institution that cost my parents $32,000 a year? I wrote an op-ed for the school paper, calling out the gap between the reasons we claimed to be at Penn and my felt experience of why people were actually there. I'm sure it warmed my parents' hearts to read it as they continued working hard to pay to send me to this place that made me feel alienated and alone. At home, in my childhood bedroom in Rockville, I looked at my pink and seafoam green decor and felt lame. What was wrong with me? Why did these things bother me that didn't bother other people? Jordan went to the University of Maryland, so being home meant I could see him more. I remember sitting at a party with his a cappella group and just feeling so sad. I thought about transferring to another school. I went to visit Kate at Wesleyan in Connecticut, where there was a strong creative vibe. Her friends cooked dinner while I was there, gathering around a small kitchen table and drinking wine out of coffee mugs. They were musicians and filmmakers. Kate herself was studying costume design. They also did a lot of drugs, and it terrified me. I felt, on the one hand, like I was with my people, and on the other hand, like I was a self-conscious square who would never fit in. Meanwhile, my mother wasn't having it. She called up the advisory office at Penn and declared, "Hello, I sent you my talented, happy child, and she's miserable and left school in the middle of the semester. What do you have to say?" In hindsight, I see how she was modeling how I could advocate for myself. Years later, I would become a fierce advocate for my own daughter. Anyway, she got someone on the phone who asked, "Well, why isn't Amanda an English major?" "She should be an English major. All the creative kids are English majors. Not to mention, I'm looking at her transcript and all of her electives are in the English department." My mom passed these messages along, and soon I was talking to the advisor. "But an English degree is impractical," I argued. It was hard being a liberal arts student at Penn, where 3 out of the 4 undergraduate schools were explicitly pre-professional: business, engineering, and nursing. It felt illogical to me for my parents to pay so much tuition for me to read books. That's why I'd been a communications major. It seemed practical. "Be that as it may," this advisor told me, "the English department is where you'll fit in." Okay, I thought. I'd rather be the more liberal, creative one in a conservative environment than the more conservative, lifestyle-wise, person in a more liberal environment, like Wesleyan. So I went back. But this time, everything was different. I was, as Alicia Keys might put it, a girl on fire, improvising one choice that veered away from the script I thought I was supposed to follow, unleashed a hunger for more. It turned out I had taken so many high-level English seminars as electives that now I had to take a bunch of intro-level classes just to fulfill the requirements of the major. In Intro to British Literature, we read the English mystery plays, which are based on Bible stories. Our teacher assigned us to write an essay, and something inside of me was like, nah. I went to her office hours and said, "I can write this essay, but I've written a million essays like it. Could I write a play instead?" And, to her immense credit, she said yes. I was literally writing my own scripts. I was saying yes and years before I ever set foot on an improv stage. I wrote a modern take on the Immaculate Conception, in which Joseph doesn't believe Mary that her pregnancy is a miracle. He insists she must have cheated on him. She feels betrayed by him and by God, telling God she never asked for a child. My teacher had us do a read-through in class, and then I wrote another play, this time a modern take on Noah's Ark, in which his wife thinks he's bizarre for listening to God and building this giant ark in Philly's Rittenhouse Square, and then she drowns. Again, we read it as a class. It was so validating and invigorating, and dare I say, fun. Wait, what did fun have to do with anything? You worked hard, you got good grades. When had anyone said anything about enjoyment? The seed was planted. When I took the reins and brought creativity to bear, when I improvised, I had a better time, and I liked it. I also started an independent study that first semester back that became a seminal experience for me. Our professors espoused John Dewey's educational philosophy and encouraged using students' questions to drive our learning. We each came up with a core question that we wanted to answer through a project we would then design. My question was something to the effect of, what would it take to help more Penn students have a meaningful college experience? I ended up proposing a writing course for first-year students designed to get people to actively reflect on what they wanted out of college. The syllabus then supported them in mapping out creative ways to achieve their goals. For example, if a student were interested in learning about politics and filmmaking, maybe a professor could help guide them to an internship at the local PBS station, which produced documentary films about the social issues of the day. Years later, I would be drawn to the democratic school model for my daughter. So often, seeds get planted in young adulthood that become growth we nurture throughout our entire adult lives. I was so proud of my proposal. It meant so much to me, and I really believed in the power of what I was suggesting. Looking back, I can see that this was a moment when so many themes of my adult life were born. Most importantly, a focus on intentionality and agency and on turning my own pain into positive offerings for others. Between this independent project and the playwriting, I was learning that I didn't have to just take what the world offered me. I could carve my own path. And it felt good. Yes, and. Near the end of my senior year, the head of the English department asked to meet with me. I sat facing her dark wooden desk as she told me that I would be inducted into the Phi Beta Kappa Society. I assumed at first that it was because of my good grades, and I wasn't that excited. It was nice, but not particularly meaningful. Then she said that the nominating committee was particularly impressed with my independent approach to my education. Holy shit. I'd acted on my instincts. I had shaped things in a way that made them more meaningful for me, and that was being honored. Wow. I was honored indeed. This was such a pivotal moment for me as I got ready to head out into my adult life. Some new part of me was waking up, and when other people recognized it, I felt seen in a way that no A+ had ever done. Going off script can be grueling. See, all the angst I felt for most of my time in college, crying in the middle of the day, a leave of absence from school, but is so often deeply rewarding and joyful. See how happy I was after I came back to school and started doing things my way. It makes accomplishments feel more meaningful. For years, pen felt like a no in every fiber of my being. If you've ever felt like you don't belong or like it's hard to be in a certain environment or social group, then you know what I'm talking about. And then suddenly writing those plays, proposing a new class that could help other people avoid the unhappiness I'd experienced, all of that felt very much like yes. Transcending the scripts that don't serve you requires a willingness and ability to listen to what feels like yes to you and what feels like no, and to act on those feelings. Improvisers do this when they perform, learning to listen to when it feels right to make a certain move. The actors can't stop the show, go off stage and make a quick Excel spreadsheet to analyze the situation. But with practice, they can learn to trust their instincts, moving by feel towards the story and rhythm that is there, that is unfolding as they and their scene partners create something that wasn't there before. If you can learn to listen to what feels true for you and to act on it, you will feel at home in yourself. There is no better feeling. I hope that certainly helps explain me, but more than that, I hope it landed with you. I hope there was something in there that you felt a connection to that resonated with part of your own story. And to end this very special episode of Mighty Forces, I am going to share some prompts that are in my book at the end of this chapter that I've just read from, to invite you to take a minute and ask yourself if you know what yes and no feel like in your body, in your spirit, and your soul. And a reminder or a note that your goal here isn't to look for intellectual responses. It's to notice what it feels like in your body when something is right and when something is wrong. So in that spirit, here are some questions to consider. And if you want to pause and grab a pen and paper, great. You can always come back to this part of the episode later as well. if you want to wait until you're seated and have a journal or something like that handy, or you can just let these questions kind of wash over you and ponder them a bit as you do whatever it is that you're doing. So here are some questions to consider. First, what is an example of a time or place where you felt like, I don't fit here? This isn't right for me. Second, what is an example of a time or a place where, by contrast, you felt like, hell yeah, it is easy to be here. I can relax and be myself. Next, if you're struggling to come up with examples, a reminder not to worry about, quote, getting it right. Just make a guess. For example, you might say to yourself, I think this situation was a no for me, and this one was a yes. You will not be graded. The point is to continue practicing applying the ideas from this book to your own life. There's no expectation that everything will click 100% right away. So this Thanksgiving week, to close, I am grateful to all of you for listening. I'm grateful to you for listening today. I'm grateful for the freedom to share my story. I'm grateful for the freedom to bring together people I love and admire in conversations that matter and that bring joy, I hope, into other people's lives. I'm grateful for everyone who is committed to alleviating other people's suffering in one way or another, whether, it's by holding the door for someone or leading a nonprofit organization committed to helping people who are in acute crisis. I'm grateful. And I am sending love to all of you. And I am done. Yes, this is the end. I have run out of things to say. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for listening. If you loved this episode, please consider sharing it with someone who might need it. And please take a few minutes and leave a review. That really helps the show find its people. Mighty Forces is produced by Amanda Hirsch and Haley Hatcher. The music of Mighty Forces was written and performed by Jordan Hirsch, aka my wonderful husband. Till next time, remember, you are a mighty force, and we're mightier together.